coming to be with us. My name is Elisa Olson, and I am the Director of Communications for the City of Corpus Christi. Our priority today is to keep the public informed with direct, accurate data as our water supply projects progress. So today we'll start with a progress report on recent developments and key milestones. And a summary of these will then be provided in Spanish. After that, we'll open the floor to questions from the media. When we get to the Q&A, if you'll kindly wait for the microphone to reach you so that our broadcast audience can hear your question clearly, we would much appreciate it. We will not be conducting one-on-one interviews following this media briefing, so we do encourage you to ask your questions from the media during the session. And with that, please allow me to introduce City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Thank you, Elisa, and good morning. As Elisa said, I am Peter Zanoni, the City Manager, and we're here again for another weekly update on our water situation. Before I begin, I do want to take a moment to thank the media that's here covering this morning. We do have Preston West from KIII present, and we also have two reporters, I should say, from Chris 6, that includes Nina Martinez and Rachel Clow. So we thank you for being here this morning. We know this broadcast is being watched live from others who may not be in the City Council chambers, and we appreciate you all watching, and if you're a news agency, reporting out to the greater community. So this morning's briefing will be similar to what we've done in the past. We'll give you an update on our water supply projects. We do have some new information on upcoming events, and so I'll highlight those as well, including a very important workshop next week with City Council on our Level 1 water emergency preparations, and so I'll cover that with you today. So let's begin, though, by talking a little bit about our water levels. We know we have two reservoirs in the west and one in the east, as well as the Lower Colorado River in the east, and these do not include our groundwater program that we have in Nueces County and the one we're working on in San Patricio County. So Choke Canyon Reservoir, today it's at 7.6% capacity. Last week it was at 7.8. Lake Corpus Christi is at 8.5% capacity this morning. That's the same level it was at last week this time. There was a little bit of rainfall inflow into Lake Corpus Christi, not so much Choke Canyon, with the rains that we had last weekend. And that's why Lake Corpus Christi remains at 8.5%, but Choke Canyon is slightly down. We do have better news from our eastern reservoir, Lake Texana. There was a significant rain cell or storm that passed near the lake in one of the recharge zones. And so as of this morning, if you look at the Texas Water Development Board website, the lake level is just under 55%, 54.8% to be exact. The number from the Lavaca Navidad River Authority is going to be a little bit higher. They have different measurement from their gauges there, but we do use, when I report from here, we do use the Texas Water Development Board figures. So 54.8%. The National Weather Service on Monday said we can expect even a little bit more inflow all the way up to Friday of this week. So that number is likely to go up just a little bit more by tomorrow. And then the weather forecast itself, I won't report on what the National Weather Service is reporting, but I do want to report on that they have more confidence than ever that the weather phenomenon, El Nino, is transitioning to become predominant here. And the La Nina weather effect that's really caused a lot of drought conditions is dissipating, which is good news. And El Nino will be in a heightened effect by May, June, July of this year. And as the year progresses, that weather pattern will take over more and more. But we will begin to see some of its effects beginning as early as May. And so what that means for us is that storms coming from the Pacific or from the west, coming across Texas and to over here, will be more likely, which is good, because those types of storms really do benefit our western reservoirs, Lake Corpus Christi and Choke Canyon. On the flip side, in terms of a negative with El Nino can block tropical storms and coastal type storms, the way the weather pattern happens. So we can expect potentially less activity from those types of events. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our groundwater program. And so and from now on, I'm just going to refer to our groundwater program in Nueces County as that, our Nueces groundwater program. We do have 3 well fields, just for context this morning. We have our Eastern well field, our Western well field, and our Ed Rochelle Foundation well field. But going forward, just to make it a little more simple, we're just going to refer to that as our Nueces groundwater program. So we continue to drill wells in our Western well field in that Nueces groundwater program, and we know that our eastern side is 100% done. And the Ed Rochelle Foundation property we closed on this week, and so work will continue there. But in summary, today we have a total of let's see, how many how many wells, Nick?
So there's 8 in the east, and then there's 8 drilled in the west. 6 have operating.
Yeah. Okay, here it is. It's 14, right? Yeah. Okay. So in our Nueces program, we have a total of 14 wells. Now, if they were all producing at 100% capacity, they would produce 21 million gallons of water, those 14 wells. But because of our water quality management plan in the river, in the Nueces River, which right now is a temporary conveyance system, we're only producing about 14 million gallons a day as of 2 days ago. So that's 66% of what we could be producing, or about 7 million gallons a day less than what we could be producing, discharging into the river. So just real quick, again on the numbers, 14 total wells could produce 21 MGD, but because of that water quality management plan that TCEQ is requiring us to use, we're producing about 14 MGD, which is less. And so we are going to we're going to activate more conversations with TCEQ to see about a variance on that water quality management plan because we're leaving water in the ground or on the table when we could be producing that into the system, helping us extend what could be a level 1 water emergency. Okay, and then let's talk a little bit about a future project for the Nueces groundwater program, and that is our containerized or modular brackish RO system. Also this week, we signed a very important contract that is with Aqualia, a firm who is going to be designing and constructing system, the modular. Also this week, we signed a very important contract that is with Aqualia. That project will be done in total in about 24 months, but we'll begin to see it being in operation in about 11 to 12 months, producing about 4 million gallons on that first phase. A lot of work is being done on the project. The total project for the brackish RO system is $175 million. That includes a 13-mile pipeline where we can convey the water directly from the Nueces well fields to Owen Stevens, where the treatment plant will be. And then that way we don't have to worry about using the river as a conveyance system. So the good news on that is a very important milestone took place this week, which is the contract is now executed. We're progressing on the design, and construction will begin soon on various segments of that 13-mile pipeline. And within 12 months from now, 11 to 12 months from now, we'll be treating the first 4 million gallons of what will be a total of 24 million gallons of groundwater that is brackish that'll be treated. So this is an important step, an important part of our project. So that highlights some of the major events in our Nueces groundwater program. Let's talk a little bit now about the San Patricio groundwater program, also known as Evangeline. We know that that is a very important project that has been discussed and analyzed, and business concepts have been developed on it for the past 40 years. And so we are moving forward with a project that'll produce 24 million gallons of water. We're buying the groundwater rights. The project with the sellers of the groundwater rights is 60% design as of last week. I would highlight, we do want to give a give some positive note to Pate Dawson, who's the engineer, the design engineer of record. They've designed this to 60% in 2 months. And anybody in the construction business knows that it probably would have taken 12 plus months to get to this point. But because of their project lead, Chris Noe, and the whole Pape Dawson team, that's partnering up with Garney Construction, in 2 months, we're at that 60% design level. By July, we'll be at 100% design. Even at 60% work is beginning construction work, and so some of the design elements are allowing us to begin construction. We know that a few Fridays ago, the first linear feet of 48-inch pipe has arrived at the site, and each week, I think just about every day, more pipe is arriving. Both 48-inch and 32-inch, I believe, is arriving, is being stored on site. The construction trailers where the Garney crews will be housed out of, there's going to be several of them. They'll be very noticeable from the highway, from Highway 77. Those should be pulling up next week, and you'll also see a construction sign. So these are all positive developments in the project. We know that the production permit, which is the most challenging to get in a groundwater project, was awarded by the groundwater, or I should say not awarded, but was approved by the Groundwater Conservation District 6 years ago, and that a 5-year term, so it was renewed. It was issued once, and it was renewed a year ago, and so that's already in place. We do have some protestants on the drilling permits and the transfer permits, and there is an administrative hearing, a preliminary hearing as they call it, on Tuesday, April 28th, where a judge that's been hired to do the analysis, Judge Alicia York, she'll determine if the protestants have any standing, and we'll know how to proceed from that hearing. And so there's several outcomes that could take place in that hearing, but if the permits are, if the judge says that the protestants don't have any standing, it's almost an immediate next step to get the permits from the Groundwater Conservation District. If there is some level of a standing, then that will be a different outcome that could last months or years before it's concluded. So that is that project. So about 2 weeks from now, we'll have a real good outcome on that with a real good understanding of the outcome, I should say, from the judge. Okay, so we've talked about groundwater projects both in Nueces and San Patricio County. Let's talk about seawater desalination. This is very much in our long-term program with steps that could be taken pretty soon. Just to remind the listening public and the media that's here, we have the Inner Harbor, the city's project. We have Harbor Island, the Nueces River Authority's project that would be on the port's property, the Harbor Island. We have a potential site, CPS Energy of San Antonio's power plant known as Barney Davis. That's on the south side of town. And then we're working with a company who's trying to complete the construction of about a 10-year-old facility at a plastics plant that is not complete either, known as CC Polymers. And Nick, our chief operating officer and team already had one negotiating meeting, and they've had two, and there'll be a few more coming up to try to progress with a take-or-pay contract for that, which could deliver initially about 9 to 10 million gallons of water. Last Friday, we know the mayor held a special council meeting to talk about the Inner Harbor project. There was no vote taken. Since that time, the modeler that we recommended and that City Council hired with the name of Spheros Environmental, one of their leads on the project, whose name is Jordan Ferdinand, is no longer with the company as of Monday. That was a decision that the Spheros company made. So the remaining teammates of about 9 professionals are recommending to us that they have 30 days additional time to get their report done because of this change in the team. And so that'll push back a vote on the contract for the Inner Harbor from what would have been April 28th. Now it's going to be June 2nd. So that's one important takeaway here from this morning's briefing, is that the vote for the Inner Harbor project, the vote with the company called Corpus Christi Desal Partners for 60% design work will be on June 2nd. And that's just going to give Spheros Environmental a little bit more time, about 30 more days at their request to get the far-field model done. I do want to point out, as Spheros reminded us, the city hired a company, not an individual. And so we hired Spheros Environmental. They're a pretty big environmental company with several divisions. One of them is far-field modeling. And the team initially was 10 professionals with Jordan. Now it's 9 with Jordan. I don't think they plan on adding a 10th person at this point. So there's still a big group of individuals working with Spheros, 9 total professionals. And then that also includes 3 additional persons from a subcontractor called Dynamic Solutions that helps with the actual modeling. But there's 9 professionals that'll help analyze the Bay environmental system. And then they have a 9 plus 3 additional persons are helping with the computer modeling from a company that they were part of the original team. So for the Far-Field Committee meetings, we did have one initially scheduled this week yesterday, but we canceled it just to get a chance to regroup with Spheros. But yesterday we put together a plan of moving forward with the company and with the committee. So there will be a meeting on April 23rd for the Far-Field Modeling Committee. We'll have 2 more on top of that, May 7 and May 21. And then a 4th meeting will be on May 28th with Spheros. And on the May 28th, they'll review the final model with the committee, and then that same model with any edits from the committee or input from the committee will be presented to City Council on June 2nd at that council meeting. That's a Tuesday. And so the Tuesday council meeting may have other items on there as well, but the 2 that we'll talk about this morning includes a presentation on the far-field modeling from Spheros, and that'll also include a contract for 60% design services for the Inner Harbor Desalination Facility with Corpus Christi Desal Partners. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about stakeholder engagement. That's an important part, and this exact briefing is part of that stakeholder engagement. And last week, one of our stakeholders that the team here from the city met with is Naval Station Corpus Christi, Naval Air Station, Corpus Christi, Corpus Christi, to make sure we understand their water concerns, water needs, and what could happen if we went into a level 1 emergency. The military is evaluating demand reduction options and seeing how they could be a good neighbor in supporting the community through this time as well. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be meeting with hoteliers to discuss their concerns and ensure that we are able to prepare for a potential level 1 water emergency with them. So hoteliers are coming up next. And we are working on a number of community input or community information sessions here in Corpus Christi. And so up to this point, we've been focused on some of the outlying regions of our distribution area, which is 7 counties and 20 communities. But we know we have to talk to our own Corpus Christi residents, their customers as well. And so we are planning to have information sessions approximately every 3rd Wednesday moving forward here. We'll have a total of 7. 1 in each of our 5 city council districts, and then a special one for the island, our Padre Island residents, and then a special one for our Cal Island residents that are a little more outside of the District 1 area. So we'll use a similar format that we've been using of having presentation, information tables, Q&A opportunity. We're also going to focus on some Spanish interpretation for these as well. So this will just help get the word out. We know and we appreciate those that are listening this morning and the media for covering it. But we also know there's a large section of our population here in our county and in 7 others that might not be having the best information. So we're going to get out there. We're going to be creative in how we invite folks as well. We won't just put stuff out in a media release. We'll try to get to where our residents congregate, whether it's at a soccer game or at HEB, and let them know about the upcoming meetings so we can get those that don't have access to our current water information, they can go to one of those meetings. Okay, now, next week, I'm almost done here, and in closing, we just want to tell you what's going on next week. And one of the things we'll cover next week with the City Council is a recommendation on splash pads and pools. This came up last week here at our briefing. So we do have 8 swimming pools. 6 of those are outdoor pools, and we have 1 indoor pool. One of those 6 pools is managed by the county, by Nueces County, there at Parker Park. And then we have a total of 5 splash pads. And so 8 swimming pools and 5 splash pads. We're going to make a recommendation to City Council, or not a recommendation, we're going to inform them because it's a staff operating decision. So we'll inform the council next week of the plan for the summer season. The majority of the pools will be open, I can tell you today. And the splash pads, similar to last summer, will open on a reduced schedule to conserve water. And as I said, and I appreciate, I think it was Chris Six for covering this, that we do care about our families. And so the decision to keep pools and splash pads open is really a family-based one. And we know it does take water to operate those, but we know we have some hardworking families here in our community that really enjoy those amenities. And so we're weighing everything together. So that'll take place next week at our council workshop. Also in our workshop, we'll have about a dozen other items that we're going to cover with council. And I thought I'd take a moment here this morning just to make sure the media and the community is aware, because you may want to come to the workshop. It will start at 10 o'clock, and right now it's scheduled from 10 to 2. And these are the dozen things we're going to cover with them. We're going to talk about and show an updated water supply demand scenario, or scenarios. We'll have 2. The last time we showed City Council these, there were 5. So we're going to narrow it down to a probable one, and then one of everything goes great, a real optimistic one. But the probable one is the one that we have to use to set allocation amounts and to really be prepared now for if we go into a level 1 emergency. This is what the forecast shows. And so we're not going to have, we went from 1 to 5, and now we're going to narrow it down to 1 with an optimistic 1, so 2. So we're going to go over that. We'll be working on that. We have been working on that. And this week we'll wrap up work with our consultant that's helping us with this. We're going to talk about baseline water consumption by customer classification because you need a baseline to know what to reduce from if we have to go into a reduction mode. And there are 4 customer classifications. We have residential, commercial, large volume users, and wholesalers. Wholesalers are other water providers that buy water from us and then sell it to other places. We're going to talk about curtailment percentages. What do we, if we hit that level 1 trigger date, what do we reduce our water consumption by? The number 25% has been used a lot because that's what's currently in our drought management plan, but the number could be greater or it could be less. And we're going to know this week because that model that we're going to finalize will show how much water we need to fill a gap between supply and demand. And then we'll make a recommendation of how long we want to try to push out the point where supply doesn't meet demand. And so curtailment percentages will be presented to council. And then we'll also show then what the allocation is, how much water can each of the customer classifications use if we went into a level 1 emergency. We're going to talk about our drought surcharges, also known as fee increases for water. We're going to just remind again the council to see if they want to change anything in the current council-approved drought management plan on car washing. And so right now the plan says car washing is prohibited when you're using the city's municipal water system. That doesn't preclude a car wash operator or somebody at home to get water from some other mean, like a well or something. But right now car washing would become prohibited once a level 1 emergency is declared. We know there's a lot of communication on that in our community. And we're going to show City Council next week the amount of water that the big car washes use here, like a Quick Quack, and there's another one that has separate meters. There are car washes in some of the gas stations and at some of our grocery stores, but those don't have separate meters, so we can't really tell. But we have enough information to show it's a pretty good use of water each month that these car wash facilities do use. We're going to talk to council about the issue because we're a coastal community. There's a lot of boats here, a lot of motorboats. And so right now the drought contingency plan says you can't wash a boat like with soap and water. However, it doesn't say anything about flushing motorboat engines. So we know if you take your boat out into the salt water, you have to hook the hose up to the engine and flush it, run water through it. That is allowed in the drought management plan. It's not prohibited, and we know it's an essential necessity, kind of like maintaining a swimming pool. That's why we allow the pools to be filled with water. So we'll clarify that with the council and the community on flushing motorboat engines. You can do that. We're going to just remind council again about what outdoor watering can be done in a level 1 water emergency. And the really only outdoor watering that can be done is if your plants are in a pot. That's it. So right now we haven't been able to water our grass. Right now you can water shrubs and gardens and trees. However, under a level 1 water emergency, those would be prohibited as well. And so we'll just remind the council on that to see if there's any policy change they would want to do. We're not recommending it, but we'll see if there's any desire from the council to do anything different. And as I mentioned, we'll talk about swimming pools and splash pads for summer operations. We'll announce the schedule then. We're going to talk about enforcement provisions. One of the council members asked about residential account growth. Is there growth in our residential accounts? There is, and we'll go over that with him, the full council. And then we'll conclude by giving more information on our community and stakeholder engagement. We'll most likely by next Tuesday have the actual schedule for the 7 meetings that we'll have in our community to include location and time. And then next week, today is Thursday, so next week we'll return on our normal day, which is Friday. I appreciate the media changing it up again this week. Last week we had a special council meeting that made us change the meeting to Thursday, or this briefing to Thursday. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Beeville with regional city managers for a regional meeting, and so that's right around the same time this event would have taken place, so that's why we moved it to Thursday this week. But next week there's nothing that requires us to move the schedule, so we'll be here Friday of next week. And what we plan to do next Friday is summarize the material that we presented to City Council on Tuesday, as well as any updates from the council. And then the important thing to know is that the workshop is an opportunity to get the council set up for several votes, policy votes, on the 28th of April. So we're going to recommend that they approve, in the event we go into a level 1 water emergency, that they approve percentage of curtailments, the percentage for curtailment and allocations. And that's important. Somebody asked, why would you do that now if you're not even going to go into a level 1 emergency until months and months into the future? It's important because residential customers, commercial customers especially, and large volume users, our industry, they need to plan from a business perspective, as do big institutions like schools and hotels, ones that use, even the city. One of the things we have to present next week is what is the city of Corpus Christi going to do to cut back water? We can't tell everybody else you're going to take a 25% reduction, and we don't do that. And so we know we have some pretty big assets like the Hilliard Center and other facilities that use water. So we will talk to council about that also next Tuesday. But the point here is that businesses and even residential and even institutions need some predictability. They need a predictable business environment. And so that's why we're going to lay out and have council approve these policy decisions in the event we do have to go into a level 1 emergency. It just helps us be prepared. And so that'll be the last meeting of the month. So next Friday, we'll go over some of the policy items that the council should be considering on the following Tuesday, the 28th. Okay, so that concludes this morning's briefing. We're ending at good time, so the media will have plenty of time for questions. Gabby's going to do a quick translation in Spanish, and then I'll come back up here to the mic to answer any questions that the media might have.
Los niveles actuales de los embalses, el almacenamiento de agua superficial sigue siendo muy bajo, aunque el lago de Corpus Christi recibió un poco de agua con las recientes lluvias. Actualmente, Chow Canyon se encuentra al 7.6% de capacidad, mientras que el lago de Corpus Christi al 8.5%. El lago de Texana se encuentra al 54.8%, el cual obtuvo un ligero aumento debido a las lluvias. El Servicio Meteorológico Nacional predice una transición hacia el fenómeno del Niño entre mayo y julio. Si bien esto probablemente signifique un menor número de sistemas tropicales, aumenta así la probabilidad de lluvias. En cuanto a los proyectos de aguas subterráneas o programa de pozos del Condado de Nueces. Los pozos del área occidental actualmente producen 10 millones de galones por día. Esperamos tener pozos adicionales operativos para finales de esta semana, a 14 millones de galones por día, alcanzando un total de 14 pozos para el mes de junio. Continuamos con pláticas con el Estado para producir más agua. En cuanto a la desalinización, el agua salobre con la compañía Aqualia se encuentra en marcha en la construcción de una planta modular con un costo de $175 millones, en las cuales se incluyen tuberías de hasta 13 millas de distancia que llegarán a las instalaciones de Owen Stevens, alcanzando una capacidad de 21 millones de galones para el segundo año de operación. El proyecto Evangeline. El diseño del proyecto se ha completado en un 60%. Se espera tener el 100% para el mes de julio. Se ha programado para el 28 de abril una audiencia crítica sobre la legitimación procesal en relación con las objeciones a los permisos. En cuanto a la desalinización de agua de mar, continúan evaluándose 4 posibles ubicaciones. Los resultados del estudio Fairfield, que dará información sobre el impacto al medio ambiente, se entregará al Consejo Municipal el próximo 2 de junio. Esto para el sitio del Inner Harbor o Puerto Interno. Continuamos realizando también juntas para que la comunidad de nuestra área participe. Estamos coordinando esfuerzos con la Estación Aérea Naval de Corpus Christi en materia de reducción de la demanda de agua y nos reuniremos con representantes del sector hotelero dentro de 2 semanas. También tendremos nuevas sesiones informativas a partir de mayo. Se van a llevar a cabo sesiones cada tercer miércoles a las 6 de la tarde en los 5 distritos de la ciudad. Se ofrecerá interpretación en español. Habrá 2 sesiones especiales, una en el área de Calalien y la otra en la isla, haciendo un total de 7 sesiones. En cuanto a la conservación de agua en parques y recreación, la ciudad cuenta con 8 piscinas y 5 chapoteaderos. No se prevén cierres totales, pero se reducirá la actividad operativa. Los próximos pasos: habrá un taller del Consejo Municipal el 21 de abril, en donde perfeccionaremos el marco de actuación para la emergencia hídrica del nivel número 1. Nos vamos a centrar en varios temas. Hablaremos sobre la reducción de posiblemente el 25% del uso del agua, así como cuánta agua podrá utilizar cada cuenta, o los recargos en caso de usar más agua de la permitida. También hablaremos sobre los lavados de autos, los cuales pudieran prohibirse si llegamos a una emergencia. Detallaremos qué hacer con el enjuague de botes. Mucha gente aquí en el área cuenta con botes, así que aclararemos el uso del agua. También hablaremos sobre el uso de agua para plantas que se encuentren en macetas. Por último, hablaremos sobre los horarios definitivos de verano para las piscinas municipales. Esperamos que el concilio apruebe varias de estas recomendaciones para que así los comercios y familias comiencen a realizar planes. La próxima sesión informativa para los medios es el viernes 24 de abril a las 10 de la mañana.
Okay, we'll take questions, and then after the questions, I'm going to give the media an update on our credit rating. We just got word from Moody's, as we expected, so we'll be putting out a media release, but I'll tell you here what it will say since we're here this morning. But we'll take questions first. Yes, ma'am, Rachel? Rachel Clow? You want to go first? Okay, sorry.
Preston West, Channel 3
Preston,
News.
yes, sir.
And this question, once again, is coming in from one of our senior reporters, Michael Gibson. And his question is, where are those federal dollars that we keep hearing about coming to Corpus Christi to help pay for most or all of the Inner Harbor desalination projects?
Right, great. Yeah, so Preston, on behalf of Michael Gibson with KIII, is asking about something that a lot of people have been talking about here locally, as well as in Washington, D.C., and that is federal funding. And so we know President Trump was here recently. We know that he made statements that he was asked for money, big money, for our desal project or projects. We know folks like U.S. Representative Michael Cloud continue to work in Washington, D.C. on behalf of our project, the Inner Harbor Project. We know the Port of Corpus Christi and the Nueces River Authority have teams as well, and federal legislative delegation representatives who are similarly working for funds for the Harbor Island project. There is word that work is still being done, and that I would say that it's looking promising, which is great news. And so we know that the federal government has interest in helping fund one or more projects here in our immediate Corpus Christi region or projects along the Gulf Coast. We know several other communities are looking at seawater desalination. And so the good news is that the president's budget and the work on the budget for the next fiscal year is underway today, or now it's been underway. And we do know for a fact that our legislative delegation members, including and especially, and we want to thank him and his team, U.S. Representative Michael Cloud, his Chief of Staff Mark Longoria, are staying in constant contact with us and care about trying to get federal funding to help us here. And we know the same work is being done by other legislators for the Harbor Island. So hopefully, Preston and Michael Gibson, hopefully we'll hear something soon. And it would be great if we could hear something before that June 2nd time, that June 2nd City Council meeting where City Council has to consider the design services contract for the Inner Harbor project. Mm-hmm.
Good morning. I'd like to talk about the Nueces County well field. So we know that it's a significant part of the city's strategy. Today you combined both the western and eastern well field, but you've previously said that the western well field, you were hopeful that TDS levels would be lower. And so I'd like to know at what capacity is that producing? You noted 64% capacity combined.
Yeah.
What is the western field?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Rachel Clow from Chris 6 News. So that's an important question. I'm glad you're asking it because we probably need to elaborate on it. So we know that because of the state regulatory agency, TCEQ, that we have a mandate to monitor TDS, total dissolved solid or salt. We know that the water that's pumped in this region is brackish, meaning it has salt. So right now we're using the river as the conveyance system to move that water about 13 plus miles from well fields to our water treatment plant. The river's used to convey it. Ultimately, within about a year's time frame, we'll use a pipeline, so we don't have to worry about this. But on the eastern well field, the first well field in Nueces County, the TDS is a little bit higher there than the western. The TDS was about 3,000 parts. The western was about half. But here's the important news is that what we're finding is that even with half the level of TDS, we're still only able to pump about half the water we could pump into the river. And so this is new information, this is like breaking information. As we know, the western well field has had 3, 4, and now 6 wells, and by tomorrow, 7 wells. And so it's a matter of seeing what happens, analyzing the water quality. We know what the TDS is in the groundwater in the western well field. We don't know, because we hadn't done it, what the behavior of the river water would be. We had a few assumptions of how the western and the eastern well field discharges would interact with each other. But the bottom line is this, which is that we were only able to produce about the same amount from each well field in terms of maximum percentage, and that's about 66%, which we don't think is acceptable. We don't think it's acceptable. That's why we have to work with TCEQ to say, look, we could be adding 7 million more gallons right now into the system, but we can't because of this monitoring program. And we know what the alternatives are. The alternatives are 2. One is we have higher arsenic and higher TDS from declining lake levels in our western reservoirs. And then we also have higher arsenic levels from those western reservoirs. And that's not meant to scare anyone. It's just meant to say the choice of a little bit higher TDS, which is not a regulated substance by an environmental group, is better, we think, than higher arsenic or no water at all in the river because there's none coming out of the reservoirs. So we're going to begin more work with TCEQ. They've been great partners of ours, and I do want to acknowledge that right here, right now, that without them, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. They put in extra hours and extra effort, and we appreciate that. What we can see, though, is that the management plan for water quality, for salt, TDS, is just not, it's not, we can't do the maximum that we could, and we think that's an issue. So, yes, ma'am. Rachel has a follow-up.
I'd like to follow up on that because, you know, residents and council have both talked about the mitigation plan that is a requirement of that permit. And when asked, the city has talked about the Good Neighbor Program. Are you equating the Good Neighbor Program with that mitigation plan? And if not, when is that mitigation plan going to be ready?
Yeah, I think I understand the question, Rachel. So the mitigation plan is a water quality in the river. Is that what you're talking about? Or the, yeah, okay.
The CC, the Corpus Christi Aquifer Storage and Recovery District plan that has been referenced by residents and requested by council.
Okay, yeah, the Good Neighbor Program. So, okay, I think that's what you're talking about, right? So we do have in place a good neighbor or mitigation plan, kind of synonymous in name, and that is to help other persons or entities that might have a well, right? Because as we produce this week 14 million gallons from wells in Nueces County, there is some believe that that might be impacting their own wells. And their own wells could be a residential well, it could be a livestock or farming type well, it could be a well that's at a fire station, that type of thing. So the program continues. I'm not sure the exact question, but the program continues. We still have our call number, 826-1600. We're still providing free services to those that call us and want us to come out to check their wells to determine a baseline level, to determine water quality of the well. We're still doing that free. I don't know if too many more people have called this week. And we're still actively working with, and we have to make a few calls still now that Nick's back, to the city manager, city administrator of Orange Grove, and Three Rivers, both of whom issued declarations of disaster this week. So our hydrogeologist, Terra, and Steve Young is the principal, are studying, continuing to study. They've been studying the discharging out of the aquifer and how could that impact a neighboring community or a neighboring well. And that information will be shared, and we're meeting with folks. And so the impact here on the salinity in the river doesn't really impact the Good Neighbor Program so much, but if we're pumping more water, there could be more persons concerned. And so we'll be, just as we have been doing today, be open and transparent and put everything that we have on our website and offer those free services to the community. Yeah, thank you, Rachel.
Mr. Zanoni, we have two questions from the Texas Tribune from Colleen.
Okay.
I'll ask the first one. The city manager mentioned 14 wells. Are all 14 wells online? How many are online? How many are offline? And how many are in construction?
Great, yeah, and we appreciate the Texas Tribune following us. So, and we especially appreciate the reporter being mindful. What's her name again?
Colleen.
Connie?
Colleen.
Colleen being precise on these numbers. So let me just give some background context before I answer Colleen's question from the Texas Tribune, which is that a well could be on, all wells could be on, but then some of them could be off because of the TDS levels in the river, and that could change in a 24-hour period. So they all could be on. We might have to turn some off. 8 hours later, we can turn a few more back on. So the situation with the water quality, the TDS of the salt in the river, mandates that we adjust the pumping of water, mandates that we turn wells off or allows us to turn wells on. And it's a kind of a fluid, I hate to use that word, but it's a fluid management plan. And so right now, the facts are we have 14 wells that are 100% operable. We could go out there right now and turn them all on, they would all work. 14 wells, there's 8 in the east and 6 in the west. They could produce about 21 million gallons of water if they were all on, as they have been at some points of time this week. However, as of 2 days ago, based on the gauges, we could only produce 14 million gallons out of those wells which ones were on and off and how much came out of each well. I don't have that level of detail here. But the key answer for Connie with the Texas Tribune is there are 14 that can be turned on right now, so they're 100% operable. But because of the TCEQ regulatory plan, we can't keep them all on all at the same time right now.
Thank you, sir. One more question from Colleen. A couple of months ago, the city was warning that an emergency was a few months away. Where does the city stand now? Based on the various projects the city currently has running and the amount of water the city is currently bringing in, when could the city transition to a level 1 water emergency?
Right, so Colleen, we're going to, hopefully you'll tune into our City Council workshop next week on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, beginning at 10, because we'll answer that question then. I will say, though, that the water monitoring plan in the Nueces River by TCEQ is prohibiting maximum discharging of water, and I just mentioned that we could be putting 33% more water into the system right now, and we can't because of this TDS monitoring plan. But we're going to show that. So the point is that this reduction of what we could put into the system is having a slight impact, or an impact, forget about slight, is having an impact on the model. Recall there were 5 models, 2 talked about a May curtailment trigger date, 2 talked about an October, and 1 talked about none. It was the most optimistic. We had been saying, and we're going to see if this holds up, we had been saying May is probably not likely, nor is October likely. We said it would be sooner than October, but it could be, we'll see next week, you know. But the fact is, when we model out 66% of available water, and not 100%, it does have an impact on availability, because the difference is made up from the western reservoirs, so we're just drawing water quicker out of the remaining waters in Choke Canyon and Lake Corpus Christi. So Tuesday will show a different scenario, and it's going to be sooner than October. And I don't know, I actually don't know right now how far away from May it will be. But this type of information I'm sharing this morning will help to give persons understanding when we say it's going to be a little sooner than what we thought. It's because we can't produce the water out of the Nueces groundwater program that we had modeled initially.
Okay, we'll take a few more questions from our local media, and then I have a few coming in from Quantum Commodity Intelligence USA. So local folks.
Okay.
Good morning. This question is actually from Michelle Hoffman. As we all know, we're in a dire situation in regards to our water supply. The question here is, how can a city the size of Corpus Christi that is fitted with water smart meters on virtually every residential and business consumer not provide real-time data to their users to help them conserve the water?
Yeah, good question. That Ms. Martinez with Chris Six, that's a resident, right? They're still. Last week, Chris Six opened up a forum where persons from the community can contact Chris Six to get us questions that can be answered in this media brief, so we appreciate you doing that. So the resident's question is, in Corpus Christi here, all of our customers have a quote-unquote smart meter. It's a digital reading meter. We don't have meter readers that some communities may still have, where you go around and each month and they read the meter. Ours transmit use data to a computer system, and then that tells us how much each customer is using in real time. So I don't have the exact answer, except I can say this, that the smart meters aren't as smart as they could be. I think that's a fair statement. So the data is it's dated, it's transmitted not real time, right? A couple of times a day. But let me say this, that I personally purchased an add-on meter it's called Flume. And I'll tell you what, without having that, with a family of kids and a wife, that can lead to water running, toilets running, that type of thing, we would have wasted millions of gallons of water probably. Not millions, but a lot of water, I should say. So we do need to look at, Nick and our CCW team, about how can we get residential customers to have access to meter information on their cell phone. There's a lot of apps, there's a lot of systems. I know San Antonio and Corpus Christi Water had rebates for that Flume system. That's how I found out about it. And so we need to look at that, because customers here aren't going to go out and looking into their meter, they may not even know where it's at, and it's not convenient, especially in the summertime with our blistering temperatures. So we do need to look at how we can help our customers have access to meter reading. I don't think the system we currently have allows that, but we need to look more into it and help them.
Thank you. This is in regard to the desalination delays. You said the Harbor Island desalination vote has now been pushed to June 2nd. How does that delay impact the city's long-term water security?
Yeah, so the delay is about 30 days, and I don't think it has an impact. I think what it'll do is ensure that the 9 council members have the best information on the far-field model. And that far-field model will tell, does the Inner Harbor Desalination Facility have an impact to salinity levels in the bay and water temperature, which could lead to areas of, they call hypoxia. But I think the company Spheros Environmental asked for 30 days to make sure they're going to get the best report. And so for me, that's a plus, and that'll give council and the 19-member Far-Field Committee made up of representatives that the City Council and the City Manager appointed. They'll have higher confidence in the reporting out, as will the council. And so I think a 30-day delay in a vote with better information is better than a sooner vote. So it would have essentially a month delay in the overall project, which right now is scheduled, if council approved it, to be designed and built and operating by late 2029. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sir. These questions are from Sheila Tobin with Quantum Commodity Intelligence USA. If level 1 water emergency is declared, how will this impact oil refineries in the city that rely on water for many of their operations?
Mm-hmm. Right, so the reporter from Quantum is asking, if we go into a level 1 water emergency, how will this impact refineries? We know there's at least 3 big refineries here. That includes Flint Hills, Citgo, and Bolero. And it would impact them, is the answer. So the drought contingency plan, just to use this percentage to demonstrate it to the Quantum reporter, talks about at least 25%. And total between 5 and 25%, but that's just guidance. It could be higher than 25%, but let's just use the 25%. So if we reduce water consumption in a level 1 water emergency by 25%, that means the refineries, the oil refineries, will have to cut back on water from the system by 25%. And the impacts they'll have to answer, somebody made a comment this week that I made a statement that was foolish, but that actually came from the refiners that said if you turn off our water, it can lead to fire-type events, explosions in their plants if we do it without notification. So the refiners have to answer that question, but it's not hard to come to a conclusion that if you reduce water that they need to make product, they're going to have to make less product, less oil, less jet fuel, less plastics. Because they've already, over the years, modified their operations to reduce water use. They put in smart technologies. They reuse their water. So all the water they're using today is to produce the commodities that they're producing today. So if they have to use 25% less or some number less, that means they have to produce less product. That's how it works. So.
Okay, you already answered her second question, so I'll jump to the third. Will a level 1 water emergency also impact U.S. crude exports, which is a major business in Corpus Christi, being the top U.S. crude export hub for the country?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is going to be somewhat of a guess, if you will, on the question, because the city doesn't run the Port of Corpus Christi, and we're not in the crude business exporting, but I think the amount of water used to export crude oil I don't think it's significant. What do you think, Nick? Nick's agreeing, yeah. So crude oil here, if those that are listening outside of the city, a lot of the oil that is put on these large barges or vessels that are shipped outside of America is transported here via pipeline from oil fields like the Permian Basin, or what's the northern shale, the Eagle Ford shale. So a lot of that oil is piped in from pipeline and loaded onto a vessel, and the vessel takes off in the Port of Corpus Christi in the international water. So I don't think there's too much water used in that process. So I think the answer would be it wouldn't have too big of an impact. Yeah, just the refining of the crude oil. So they were just asking about raw crude oil. and that probably wouldn't have an impact on the crude oil export.
Thank you, sir. We have time for 2 more questions.
Yes, this question is from my colleague, Clara Benitez. Has the city gotten any information back from the consultant that you guys hired for the water release agreement? This is in response to the letter from Representative Villalobos had sent.
Okay, yeah, they agree. Right, so just as background context, Nina Martinez from Chris 6 is asking about an order that we have from TCEQ that they call it an agreed order, but it's an order that we have from TCEQ that when the western reservoirs have supply above, I think, 50%, when they're at least 50% or greater full, we do have to release certain amounts of water to mimic the original river that has now been impounded, or rivers, so that downstream there's still some semblance of what the environment used to be like. And so recently Representative Denise Villalobos from Texas here, that represents our district, asked that the city of Corpus Christi, the community of Three Rivers, and Nueces River Authority, those 3 entities are party in that agreed order. And they are also all a party of the Choke Canyon system, which is one of the dams that's managed with that agreed order. She asked that we look at it, that we ask to have it terminated. And so prior to Denise Villalobos, Representative Denise Villalobos sending us that letter, probably about 6 months to a year ago, one of our council members asked raised similar concerns. And so at that time, we had began to look at who could help us from a consulting standpoint to see all the impacts of either keeping it as it is or modifying it or terminating it. Not much work has been done yet. We've had a couple of preliminary conversations with the consultant. And so we'll work on that. The key thing is that even if it was terminated today, it would introduce 0 or no water into the system, because we haven't discharged water for the river purposes for how many years? Years. It's been plural, so many years, because the reservoirs have been below 50% for a couple of years now. So it wouldn't have any, even if we did it today, it would have no impact on water quantity. But we are appreciative of Representative Villalobos' concern, as others are concerned. And so that's why we're going to have a consultant look into it. So we don't have too much information right now, but we'll share that as we get it. Mm-hmm.
Peter, I understand that Tuesday's workshop is to talk about all of the many issues that could surround potential curtailment. What this public is looking for is they are looking for a plan that is voted on and is in place. Given that we may enter an emergency before October, when will residents, businesses, large volume users have that plan that is set in place?
Yeah, great. Rachel Cloud from Chris 6 is asking about a plan if we go into a level 1 emergency. And so Tuesday is the workshop to discuss for a second time the main ingredients of that plan. Those include how much water would I be allotted if we went into a level 1 water emergency? Or conversely, how much would I have to reduce my current consumption by? And then do I have to pay more money for water, right, known as the surcharges? And so this Tuesday coming up is one final conversation with the council on what we recommended on the prior workshop. That plan will be considered for approval on the 28th of April. So 1 week after next Tuesday, that's when the plan will be in place, and hopefully it's months and months down the road if we ever have to activate it. But if we did go into a level 1 water emergency, that plan will be approved by City Council on April 28th. That way residents, commercial businesses, and large volume industrial customers will know what the plan is, and they'll know how much do we have to cut back in water consumption, how much would we have to pay for water. These are some of the concerns that Rachel has heard, and we have heard them too. School districts want to know, I have to set my budget, how much is water going to cost me? They want to know, am I going to get curtailed, period. Some are looking for exemptions from curtailment, complete exemptions like hospitals, and we're working with them for them to submit waivers so that they don't get impacted by a reduction. Since they're a critical industry or a critical life-saving operation. And so We'll have that plan on April 28th. There may be a few straggling things, but the goal is, that's why there's a dozen items on next week's workshop. The goal is to get all the questions answered by council next week. And if not, then we get them answered before the 28th of April, and so that council can approve that plan on April 28th. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we have 3 minutes here, and just probably within the next hour, we're going to be putting a media release out. And so we know there's 3 rating agencies that around this time of year annually, regardless of what's going on here with this water situation, around this time of year, they do an update on our credit rating. Fitch was the first to come out with their update, and that was about a week ago, I think, a week and a half ago. Fitch rating agency affirmed our credit rating on our geo debt and utility debt. Utility debt's our water and wastewater debt. They affirmed the rating, which is a high-grade rating, but they did move us from an outlook of strong, stable to negative. And so the outlook is not a rating, but it's just another indicator that an investor can use when they look at buying our debt. That was Fitch. So today, Moody's, within the hour or so, will issue their media release, and we'll be sending council information here right after this briefing. Moody's, we appreciate their work. They have kept our credit rating the same. They've kept the credit rating the same. Earlier in the week, there was indications, and I told council this on Tuesday, that they could downgrade us again. But because they know and they recognize, because we spent so much time with some of their lead analysts like Ken and Bola, that they know there's a lot that's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now, 2 to 6 weeks with the desal vote being moved to June 2nd. But they know that an important administrative law hearing on the 28th with Evangeline will be important on water security. So they've delayed, so they've kept our credit rating the same, but they have put us on what they call like a watch, under review. They put us under review, and they've done that to us before. What that means is they're going to keep us under review for the next 60 to 90 days. And if they see movement, either good or bad, then they may adjust our rating either up or down, or our outlook. So that's good news right now. We appreciated Ken and his team for taking this position, because there is important information coming out. We know that the Evangeline groundwater project is one of the, if not the only project that'll keep us out of a level 1 emergency, because water would come in November. And we know that the community of San Patricio, the 7 or 8 cities over there, including Sinton, know that as well. That's why we're working with them to see if they would dismiss their protests. But so that's great on Moody's. And then the final one is Standard & Poor's, and it'll still be a couple weeks out before they render their annual surveillance update. We've provided them information and met with them recently as well. So they do have a concern as well on water stability and just the risks that are going on with some of these projects to bring online, but we're not sure what they'll do in their ultimate rating. So that'll be forthcoming. So in summary, the Moody's press release is coming out soon. They've upheld the current rating, but put us on a outlook, or watch, I guess, as they call it. And we'll continue to work with them to give them information as things develop here. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zanoni. Our next update will be held right here next Friday on April 24th at 10 a.m. Also available via live stream on our YouTube channel. A full recording of today's briefing will also be available on the city's YouTube channel a little bit later today for your reference. Please direct any follow-up inquiries to communications.department@corpuschristitx.gov, and that email address is up here on the screens as well. And that concludes our briefings. Thank you so much.